Was there somebody else? Are we good?
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the time equalizer matrix and where you're spending your time. So you'll look on the computer, and there's really four quadrants, what I call the equalizer matrix. It's quadrant one, which is in the top left if you're looking at your screen. Then there's quadrant three, quadrant four, and then quadrant two. And if you look along the Y and X axis, you'll see not important to important, and on the bottom, urgent and not urgent. And really what this is saying is, in that quadrant one, and just think about your last 86,400 seconds, from yesterday at 3:30 to today, where were you spending the bulk of your time? And in the top left, around necessity, if something comes up, it's a crisis, it's an unforeseen event, pressing problems. We all have those. Those are things that you're going to have to address. Or do you spend time in quadrant three, where it's unimportant digital distractions, like your mobile phone, or maybe you're just looking at things on the computer, but it really wasn't urgent, and there's just these disruptions. So whether it's someone coming to your dorm room or taking a phone call, these are just this quadrant three, is the distractors. And then if you get over to the far right, which is the time wasters, avoidance activities. So when I think about time wasters, and I'm not at all suggesting that if you do this, you're a bad person, or you're not an effective leader, or you're not an effective person. But if you binge watch on Netflix all day, that is what I consider a time waster. Or if you're avoiding the things that you need to do by finding other things to fill the void, and then or Netflix is a good example, or spending time on Facebook, or spending time on Snapchat, or spending time on Instagram, or any other digital media that keeps you from doing the thing you need to do. And really where I want us to focus our time, and maybe this gets to the routine, this speaks to the 86,400 seconds that you have in a day. It's in this quadrant two, what I call deep work zone. And Dr. Burkheimer and I have taught, there's a book called Deep Work, and it really talks about getting into this zone where you're just able to really be proactive. You're focused on your goals. You're focused on the things that you need to do, and in most of you on the phone, other than myself, Dr. Burkheimer, and Darlene, schoolwork is one of those things where all of us know it's easy to fall into quadrant three and quadrant four. And once you find yourself in those two areas, your time optimization becomes less, and you're rushing to get work done. And then what quality of work do you produce if you're rushing and trying to, what I call, check the box in its training or in its work product? Is it good or mediocre or not good at all if you're rushing, typically?
Not good at all.
Yeah, not good at all. So there's a book. It's another little book I have. I've had this for a lot of years. It's called 212 Extra Degree. So what's the significance of the number 212 in this, do you think, with water? What happens at 212 degrees with water?
It evaporates.
Will eventually, right, Tim? But what happens before it creates steam? It boils. So at 211 degrees, what is that water doing other than it's hot? Is it boiling yet?
Probably idling.
Yeah, it's not boiling. So think about that 1 degree in the context of water, how big of a difference that makes. And once that water starts to boil, it creates steam, and lots of things can be generated from steam. So when you think about where we are today and some of the things we talked about, we're going to go through this exercise. These slides will be made available for you. I really want you to work through. We're going to go to the next slide, Andy, and talk about what's next in this equalizer matrix. So in your journal or on a piece of paper, That's handy. I want you to think about your last 24 hours. List all those things you did in the last 24 hours. And where do you think you spent the bulk of your time? And then write down these 3 questions, and then we'll flip back to the prior slide, which has the matrix. And the last one is really just a question based on where you believe you spent your time. How productive was your last 24 hours? And I want you to find productive in things that you know you needed to get done, for whether it's schoolwork, for your sports team, whether there's something you had to do outside at the community service, if you give time, try your talents, define productive that way. And productive doesn't mean I achieved a binge watch of whatever the latest Netflix show is. That to me, I would not define as productive as it relates to this session. Okay, so let's take about maybe 5 minutes. So to write that down would be great. And again, if there's any questions, just please raise your hand.
Gary, I imagine you want a pretty good level of detail here, not sort of the high level what I did every couple hours, but really take some time to think about.
Yeah, ideally, Dr. Burkham, that's good feedback. Yeah. So, I woke up at this time. I don't necessarily need to know that when you brushed your teeth and things like that, but just in general, what were the things that, in this 5-minute exercise, based on those questions that I had asked.
Yeah, I think this is a really good exercise, particularly for college students. You think about a typical day, you are in and out of the classroom or in and out of a virtual classroom. And what are you doing in between those class sessions? That would really help you think through this exercise here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Gary, you have not cut out since we have gone to just audio. So I know you like seeing the faces, but this seems to be working pretty well so far.
Yeah, we have to do that frequently in our Teams session for the same exact reason. So this is working perfect. So I'm good. I got everybody's face, and I do have the sheet that you sent me as well, but I'm good, and everybody really has a nice photo, or most everybody has a good photo up on their Google account as well.
Gotcha.
Rishi, you have a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, do we present this after we finish?
Not right now. There'll be some homework later, and then hopefully, if we are able to meet again face to face, we'll talk through it. But towards the end of the session, there'll be some homework and takeaways, and we'll determine how best to present those at the next session. We'll kind of talk through maybe some things that have changed. But at this moment, we do not need to be prepared to present anything.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So we got about another minute or so, kind of wrap up. And maybe when you're done writing things down, just put your hand up, and that way I'll know everybody's ready to move on. All right, good. So, and really, gang, as Dr. Burkemper said, a lot of this is just some really time to think about the time, the matrix, and really where you're spending your time. And what's really important about this is also around the goals. So part of the time equation also has to align to the goals that you have. And goal setting should never be easy, right? It should really create some mental strain and force you to work, because easy goals are easy goals. And easy goals aren't going to stretch you beyond or outside your comfort zone. And as Michael Phelps says, even if they're uncomfortable at the time, your goal should make you feel uncomfortable. Why do you think that is? Someone just kind of respond to that question for me. So I'll read the quote again, and then I'll ask you to, why would Michael Phelps say so? Tim, your hand's raised. I'll read the quote, and we'll let you respond. So I think goals should never be easy. They should force us to work, even if they are uncomfortable at the time. So Tim, why do you think Michael Phelps has that quote?
One of the things is because I'm actually living what he's saying now. My decision to go back and obtain my bachelor's degree with another son that's attending college and working a full-time job at the same time, being in leadership, dealing with other people. So when you deal with other people and their different attitudes, and then you come home and try to settle down and do schoolwork, then it winds up being like 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning and getting back up at 5 in the morning. So that is tough and it's taxing. But one of the things that I always tell myself is small sacrifices now will equal great gain later.
Absolutely. That's a great quote. Thank you, Tim, for sharing. Julie, we'll go, there's a couple of folks that have raised their hand. Maybe we'll go one more response to the question, and then we'll move on to the next slide. So Julie, I think your hand was up, and Guillermo, your hand has been up, so I'm not sure if you still have a question. I've seen it stay up. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. Julie?
I just wanted to say that I feel like we have to be uncomfortable in order to grow, because if we don't, become uncomfortable and we get out of our comfort zone and we stay where we're comfortable, then we're never going to be able to grow and change and be better. So we have to make ourselves uncomfortable in order to grow, basically.
Absolutely. And I think, Tim, your example, and Julie, yours is, if you think about a bodybuilder, someone that works out, right? It's uncomfortable, but it's not that it's getting easier, it's just you're getting stronger. And I think each time you raise that level of goal setting are perfect examples. And the other thing that I'm a true believer in, we're capable of much more than we ever believe we are, but we have this thing between our ears called our gray matter that tells us things differently about goal setting and what we can or can't do. And you really got to push yourself outside that comfort zone, just as Tim, you described, and Julie, your example, or Tim, your example, and Julie, your point, well taken. Next slide. So let's think about your goals and the time that you said, okay, I spent this much time yesterday. These are the things I was working on. We just talked about goal setting. And I'm a big believer in this acronym about SMART goals. SMART is specific. Have you clearly written your goals? They're measurable. How will you evaluate progress? They're actionable. Is something you can do, right? You can't necessarily come up, and you want to have big goals, but they have to be actionable. You need to be able to control those and be able to put effort in that and I underline you. These are your goals. These aren't my goals. These aren't Dr. Burkemper's. These aren't Darlene's. They're not your parents. They're not your siblings. These are your goals and what you want to achieve. They need to be relevant. Does it align to your purpose? What is your purpose? Have you defined your purpose? And they should be time bound. You need to put some bookends around the goals that you're setting for yourself and establish milestones, celebrate those successes, and they need to be clearly measured. So just remember that acronym for SMART: specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time bound. So as part of your entry into this and the cohort, you wrote down some goals. So if you would flip to the next slide, Dr. Bergkemper, and I basically cut and paste or snipped each of your goals for a couple reasons. One, they were well written, but the challenge I have for most of you were I would not define them as SMART, right? So what's the S in SMART? This is the challenge when we're doing a virtual class. So Mary, y'all see the green come on, I'll call on you. Mary, what's
Specific.
S? Okay. What's the M?
Measurable.
Measurable, Kelsey, good. What's the A? Tim?
Actionable.
Yep. R?
Relevant.
Relevant, yeah. And the T?
Time bound.
Time bound, good. Thank you all. So what I want you to do, and again, I'm going to pull just one of these up, and I'm not even sure who, I didn't put any names on them by a reason, but flip to the next slide for me, Dr. Bergkemper. So there's the one in the center. The goal is in the future, I'd like to start my own business or become a leader, CEO of another company. I think this opportunity can help me a lot by boosting my leadership skills. I always love to work on my leadership with all different opportunities since I can always develop more. So that was a goal. So when you read that statement, what's the specific goal of this particular student? And if it's yours, I'm happy for you to speak up, but if you don't want to, let someone else talk. So what's the specific goal in this statement? Marish?
To become a CEO of another company.
Right. That's very specific, isn't it? Very specific. Okay. Is it measurable?
Yes.
How's it measurable?
Whether you become a CEO or not.
Okay. How about the next, the A?
No, I would say it's not actionable.
Okay, Marish, you have a different thought?
Yeah, I was about to say it would be actionable because he's putting into action by doing all these little stuff along the way to be successful in becoming a leader or a CEO in the future.
Yeah,
So,
those are good thoughts, but if you think about the actionable part of it, what things does the individual need to do to get to that level in the organization? It may mean I've got to go back and get some continuing education. It may mean I need to spend more time. Maybe I need to get up earlier because I have to do other things. So when you, thank you, Dr. Bergkemper, for pulling that back up. The actionable part is something you can do. I did not see that, anything actionable that I could go back and say that that I could very specifically talk about that. Okay. And then time bound. How about the T?
It's not.
No, it's not. Okay.
Mine.
Yeah, that's right. So what I want to encourage everybody, and just go ahead and flip through it again. I pulled that out randomly. So if it's yours and you have some questions for me, I'm happy to work through it. Go ahead and go all the way through, Mandy. I think just from a time perspective, we're not going to be able to get to it. So